This deep dive on building responsible, resilient critical minerals to manufacturing supply chains for a secure, clean energy future. It's quite a mouthful. This is an important topic, and I'm sure there have been a lot of similar events happening nowadays in many parts of the world, but we would like to make some difference by talking more about probably actions. Let me start by thanking our partners, UNIDO, GIZ, and the government of the United Kingdom, and all our distinguished speakers who are lined up there and participants. This year, ACEF challenges us to move beyond transition toward energy systems that are secure, smart, inclusive, and resilient. Today's discussion goes right to the heart of that ambition. Because the energy transition is not only about megawatts, it is about materials. Every solar panel, battery, or EV begins with minerals. We are not just shifting fuels, we are reshaping the very foundation of our economies. In short, the energy transition is a materials transition. And that means supply chains matter. They must be diversified, reliable, and regionally connected. Asia and the Pacific are uniquely positioned with strong resource endowments, manufacturing capacity, and growing demand. But too many resource-rich countries remain stuck at the extraction stage, unable to capture higher value opportunities in processing, recycling, and manufacturing. The price is significant, but so is the gap. By 2030, investment needs are estimated at $270 billion US dollar equivalent. Closing that gap will take more than capital. It requires bankable pipelines, smart policies, early stage support, and risk sharing that unlocks private investment. At ADB, we are stepping up. Last month in Samarkand, we launched the Critical Minerals to Manufacturing Financing Partnership Facility to help countries move up the value chain and translate resources into jobs, industry, and resilience. But no single institution can deliver this alone. And let's be clear, secure supply chains must also be responsible supply chains. The clean energy transition must work for people and planet, with strong safeguards, transparency, and real local benefits built in from the start. Today's discussion is about partnership, alignment, and action. I'd like to highlight action. How do we connect the dots and help countries capture more value from this once-in-a-generation shift? Thank you for being here, and I encourage you to actively participate and challenge the speakers. Wishing you an engaging and insightful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, DG Hideaki. I think the first panel that we have is going to talk about a lot of action. Moving on, to ground our discussion now into the latest evidence on minerals, I am pleased to invite Ms. Angela Hu from the World Economic Forum to deliver the scene-setting presentation on critical minerals for energy transition. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to the Asia Clean Energy Forum and the Asian Development Bank for inviting the World Economic Forum to be a part of this important discussion. My name is Angela Min-Yi Ho, and I'm here on behalf of the Forum's Securing Minerals for Energy and Technologies initiative. The objective of my 5-minute scene setting will be to share some of the recent evidence based on our consultations with stakeholders on how to unlock mineral finance to satisfy the future demand that is projected to grow exponentially. The IEA projects that minerals demand will quadruple from now until 2040. Estimates also show that we need at least $200 billion per year between now and 2030 to satisfy that demand. So how can we unlock the finance necessary to meet this mineral demand that implicates our industrial applications, national and economic security, the devices that we hold in our phones, as well as the renewable energy needed to electrify our future and our industries? It is in this spirit that I'm pleased to present. Thank you. Our most recent report on making critical minerals bankable, which is now available on our website. At the forum, we host a group, a stakeholder community on mineral finance, composed of 70 representatives from financial institutions, ranging from commercial banks to multilateral development banks to institutional investors. And we asked them, how can we unlock investment for critical minerals? The answer we heard is, there's not a geological scarcity of minerals. It's not a lack of capital availability, but the issue is we don't have bankable investment-ready projects. So then we looked at how we can, from the perspective of blended finance, provide targeted catalytic support using public dollars to address some of the risks that perhaps private sector and financial institutions shy away from. And I'll share some of our findings in a moment, but I just want to highlight that the bankability gap is core to some of the financing challenges that we're seeing here in the minerals landscape. In fact, what we see now is treating critical minerals as a single policy category instead of looking at specific interventions that may vary based on 3 key variables. So what are the 3 variables? I have here 2 infographics to summarize some of the key findings of the session, but the 3 things we looked at in this report that determine the kind of de-risking mechanism to be used are 1, the mineral market, 2, the stage of the project lifecycle, and 3, jurisdiction risk. First, we know that this broad category of critical minerals actually encapsulates a great diversity of market architectures, right? A very liquid and mature market like copper requires different financial interventions than a very opaque market like graphite. Niche byproduct minerals such as gallium and germanium also have very different market structures compared to rare earths, which are highly concentrated in one geography. The second variable to look at is project lifecycle. In the geological exploration phase, for example, capital support is needed because there is no cash flow at that stage. However, common solutions such as offtake agreements or contract for difference would be very ineffective in that stage, but rather perhaps crowd in more private capital in the midstream and refining stage. The objective of this work is really to look at what is the right time and the right place and the right tool for public dollars to then back and invite private capital into this important landscape. And the third variable, which you can check out in our report, is jurisdiction risk. Depending on the resource abundant economy, there are a variety of uncertainties and regulatory regimes that may also underpin the de-risking mechanism, whether it's political risk insurance or other financial mechanisms. The crux of this work is really to push for nuance and look beyond treating critical minerals as one blanket umbrella. At the forum, we are an international organization for public-private collaboration. I want to share and situate the context in which this bankability report takes place, which is in our Securing Minerals for Energy and Technologies initiative. We have 4 work streams, the first on investment mobilization, the second on regional deep dives, and I'm pleased to announce that we'll be launching an ASEAN deep dive starting in July, and happy to report back to this community in the future about the outcomes of that research. And the third on trade dialogue, looking at how trade agreements can best be utilized by industry and financial actors, and how policy aspiration can lead to an investment pipeline of projects. And last but not least, we have an innovation and responsible sourcing workstream in our initiative that looks like everything from business model innovation to circularity and recycling, which is so important at the end of the mineral life cycle. In conclusion, we at the forum try to use multi-stakeholder dialogue as part of a toolkit to address the minerals challenge. Ultimately, this is about changing strategic intent and policy aspiration into implementable pipeline of projects and investable opportunities that will help us to secure the supply for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. We do look forward to hearing about the ASEAN deep dive. That's interesting. Well, moving on, I'm really pleased now to invite our colleagues from UNIDO, Peter and Ms. Gada, to introduce the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility. So over to you both, please.
Thanks very much, and it's been great to co-organize this as well with AGB. Gada, please come up with us. We're going to do a double team. You're going to have two of us today, and I'll make sure we stick to our 5 minutes. So I've just started my timer. So just to kick things off, we're in the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. We did have a Mentimeter, but unfortunately the tech apparently doesn't work, but that saves a bit of time. So we will skip over that and maybe quiz you a bit later instead. But for those that don't know, UNIDO does look at sustainable and inclusive industrial development, particularly in developing countries. That's its main mandate as a specialized agency of the United Nations. We have a 2050 vision, and the particular part of that focuses on critical minerals is really looking across the value chains and how do we create sustainable value chains for global energy transition. So whether this is at the extraction side, where we have launched a global alliance for green and responsible minerals, which I think some people in this audience might already be members of, and happy to chat more about that afterwards. To the midstream, where we're looking at how we can support projects on the refining and also processing side of the chain across the world. And then similarly on downstream recycling. And we're going to talk specifically about one facility that provides grant support to projects in developing countries for critical minerals deployment. What I might do is sort of skip over this to save a bit of time, but this we have an industrial development report that comes out every year, and the latest one had a good focus as well on critical minerals, as well as case studies in the Asia-Pacific context. But I think because of time, happy to sort of discuss that with people afterwards. I know there's a reception at 6 o'clock, so feel free to grab one of us and we'll happily talk more about this topic. It's a very exciting topic for us. I'm going to pass over to my colleague Gada, who's going to cover a bit on this facility. Yeah.
Yes, and the slide here present the importance of demonstration project and accelerating demonstration project in So the slide here highlights the importance of accelerating demonstration project in critical minerals. The International Energy Agency reminds us of that 35% of emission reduction necessary for achieving climate change or climate goals will rely on a demonstration project. Also, the high demand on critical mineral consumption and extraction, the excessive extraction of critical mineral and activities. UNIDO, critical mineral market assessment conducted by UNIDO in 2024 and rated the 30 developing countries according to their policy readiness. What we the takeaway from the critical mineral market assessment that while energy policy is advancing, also manufacturing and recycling is still limited and remain critical bottleneck. So the market assessment recommended some financial mechanisms that could support and approach by developing countries as UNIDO, the A2D facility, World Bank, ADB, and the EU. And also this is in addition to bilateral agreement. Here, according also to the market assessment, it was found that technological innovation in mid and downstream activities on developing countries, including Asia Pacific, rely primarily on technology transferred from developed countries, and still local innovation is still slow emerging and need support and financing mechanism. As you can see on the screen here, there's some types of technologies assist in Asia Pacific, including nickel, processing nickel, batteries, recycling, and the market assessment could be accessed through our website. The A2D facility is a case study of UNIDO, financing case study, and the aim of the facility is to accelerate the commercialization of clean energy solution by supporting catalytic and lighthouse effect demonstration projects across the 4 thematic area: industrial decarbonization, clean hydrogen, smart energy, and critical mineral. The facility is supported by the UK government with an amount of around 85 million. And the program is global program. We support all developing countries. The size of the grant is from 1 to 5 million. And we actually are currently supporting 9 projects through 2 calls for proposal. And the 3rd call is open. And we support the demonstration project with transformational and lighthouse effect that could achieve and create dissemination knowledge and experience to foster collaboration and the clean energy solution. So I will hand over to Peter. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Carla. I see we're 10 seconds over, so I'm just going to finish with saying we have an open call for proposals, which is open till the 18th. It's been open for a couple of months. If anyone's interested, all the links are on there. But that's a nice segue to panel 1, which I'm moderating, and I'll start my timer for that. I think we have 35 minutes for that panel, where we're going to look at aligning finance for critical minerals across the value chain. So from extraction, refining, processing, downstream, recycling. So I'm honored that we've got a great panel of experts across different sectors and lots of great experience to share with you today. So I'd like to invite to the stage our panelists. So firstly, Under Secretary Agawin, who's from the Department of Finance in the Philippines government, and also the chairman of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. Also, Ms. Cho Tano from the UK Government's Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, who is the donor also to the A2D facility and to a number of ADB programs here. Ms. Maraida Lisario, who's from GIZ. And Mr. Kwang Zhejiong from the Asian Development Bank, who's leading the new critical minerals partnership that you heard at the start. Great. So just to kick things off, I might pass the question first to Under Secretary Agawin. I mean, one of the core things about aligning finance as well is that the finance is going to projects that ensure inclusive safeguards, so environmental and social safeguards alongside projects that have been implemented. And it'd be great to hear from the experience of you both through the initiative, I always say it wrong, EITI initiative, which is, I think, got its next conference in October in Belgium, and also your experience in the Philippines government.
Okay. So I'm a brief background about EITI. It's quite a mouthful, but it's Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. It's innovative because it brings together the government, the industry, and the civil society organizations. The main thrust of it is essentially brought about by the distrust of the reports given by industry. And so the innovation is that the data reported by the mining companies is triangulated so that it's confirmed against other government data. So when they release their information, they know that it is truthful. And if you have truthful and reliable data, you tend to curb corruption if there's transparency. And also the data that you generate will be used by civil society organizations, the local governments, the affected community, so that they can properly mobilize the funds. Okay, so all this development and also the financing aspect of it will all be for naught if the benefits are not is not felt by the impacted community. And so it's important that when we design financing for critical minerals and even down the value chain, it's important that ESG principles are factored in at the earliest possible stage. And so, and in that sense, our organization, or EITI, Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, which can be a helpful tool when you are crafting those financing mechanisms.
Many thanks. Sorry, I turned this off. Sorry. But many thanks and for highlighting the importance of the initiative as well for ensuring transparency and how for project development that's a key standard that we can use as well. If I can move to Cho, I mean the UK government is a big funder and donor to critical minerals using international climate finance, and of course you announced the new climate finance commitment period of the UK over the next 3 years. It's exciting to hear more about that. Do you mind summarising the support that the UK gives to critical minerals using climate finance?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I'd say that critical minerals is definitely a critical part of UK focus for the reasons of decarbonisation and also energy resilience. And a key part of that is international partnerships. So earlier this year in January, we launched the Vision 2035 Critical Mineral Strategy, which really goes into a lot of detail showing what UK is doing both domestically and internationally. So I really recommend you also look at that for more detail, but I can give a quick summary of some of the things we are doing. So firstly, we're using our Overseas Development Aid or ODA levers to ensure we can support supply chain critical minerals. First of all, over the past 5 years, we've committed £1 billion into research and development and innovative solutions under the Ayrton Challenge or Ayrton Fund. And as part of that, critical minerals was one of the key pillars. And yes, over the next 3 years, we've committed £6 billion up till 2029 into further climate finance solutions. Secondly, we're also looking at our non-ODA levers. So looking at our development finance institutions like British International Investment as a way to support investment in enabling infrastructure. So currently BII are invested in the Owendo port in Gabon, which is looking at manganese ore. Thirdly, we're also utilising our MDB partnerships. And as mentioned from UNIDO, we're looking at political risk insurance facilities, as well as looking at investments such as the World Bank Resilience and Inclusive Supply Chain Enhancements Programme and the ESMAP programme as well, to help support partnerships for countries that are rich in critical minerals. We're also looking at, fourthly, looking at partnerships. Other ways, one of those things is the Global Clean Power Alliance Supply Chains Mission, which is a similar initiative of helping to support and diversify critical mineral supply chains and reduce barriers for that. And UK underpinning that is about making sure we have inclusive and fair practices. So we're leveraging our platform with G7, G20, and the initiative of the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative as well. So I'd say UK is doing a lot on the critical mineral space, and I really encourage you to look at the Vision 2035 Critical Mineral Strategy to go into more detail. But yeah, that was a quick summary.
Many thanks, Cho, and also thanks again to the UK government as a donor to the facility that we presented before, but it's also the donor to the new critical minerals financing partnership facility that we've got here in the Asian Development Bank, which we're really excited to have KJ, who's leading that, here to give a bit of an overview of that facility. So I think we have some slides to present, if you're happy to. Yes, I have the timer right here. So if we get the slides up, that would be great. But feel free to start while they're doing the tech.
We have it.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is KJ Jung, ADB Staff Senior Regional Cooperation Specialist. And Anika and Claire is our co-leader in terms of the critical mineral to manufacturing financing partnership facility. We initiate this financing partnership facility to boost the economy through the critical mineral as a new growth engine in Asia and the Pacific region. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to reach out to you today. And I will more elaborate a little on the the region, we initiate this initiative and the implementation tool we are thinking about in the near future. Yeah. Critical minerals are very essential in renewable energy and the battery storage and the electric vehicle and also modern power system. And yet investment across critical mineral value chain remains insufficient. Many projects face policy uncertainty, long development timeline, and then the high upfront cost, and also the limited project preparation support. So as a result, there's an often gap between early stage project development and the large scale commercial financing. You can see the missing middle. This is why ADB initiated project development through this new financing facility platform. ADB's board endorsed the direction paper, so to speak, the critical mineral strategy last year, July, built around the 6 pillar. The first pillar is the regional cooperation and integration. The second one is the policy harmonization and the ESG standard, private sector mobilization and innovation, and also the circularity and recycling is one of the main pillar we are highlighting. Now you can see the framework of the ADB's new financing partners facility. To operationalize this vision, I said ADB launched the CMM FPF, so-called CMM FPF, last annual meeting, 3rd of May in Samarkand. The facility is designed to mobilize partners' resources, de-risk investment, and crowd in private sector's capital in the end in critical mineral sector. It consists of the 2 windows. First one is the grant window, and the second one is the catalytic financing window. Grant window, you must be very familiar with. You need my colleague Peter has highlighted. We established the standalone and the multi-donor trust fund funded by mainly Japan, 2 million, and the UK government, $1.6 million. At this moment, another country like Korea, Japan, Germany, are thinking about jump in this funding facility. But the catalytic financing window more focused on the project development. Project financing needs some co-financing tool to scale up from in terms of the project on the ground. At country level, regional level, project can be explored through this catalytic financing window. How we operationalize and then how our financing partner can join this facility. The facility focuses on 4 objectives. 4 objectives: strengthening regional resilience and enhancing sustainability, and project promoting innovation and generating economic benefit. They prioritize the critical mineral is like this copper, lithium, and the cobalt. Layered elements also included to boost clean energy technology such as the wind turbine, EV, and solar PV. And importantly, the objective is not to simply finance mine, but to support integrated value chain that create job, industry, and long-term economic value in Asia and the Pacific region. You can see how financing partners participate through this framework. The main donor can be joined through the trust fund grant window and the catalytic financing window through the co-financing agreement with ADB in a bilateral manner. At this moment, the Korean Exim Bank and the Korean trade insurance companies, in terms of grant guarantee, they made an agreement with ADB, $1 billion in last annual meeting in Samarkand. Eligibility criteria. This is very sensitive, very important the part. The older DMC, the member country can join group A, B, even C if they contribute to the value chain development in Asia and the Pacific region. this governance is very important. We undertake and then implement this our CMM FBF very transparently under the very strong framework and governance structure. The applicant from the department, user department, and the CMM team, and in terms of one ADB perspective, will review internally, and then steering committee will endorse every project one by one. And let me conclude my presentation. No one institution and country can solve this challenge alone. We have to do together in terms of regional cooperation integration. Let me stop here.
Many thanks. And I think you were nicely in time, maybe 20 seconds over. We'll let you have that. But thank you for presenting. There was really fascinating new facility. And I think is really what's needed in this space, particularly that integration across the supply chain. I was wondering if maybe you could expand upon Pillar 4, I think, on de-risking of private finance and how the ADB is planning to to work with an international group and also local financiers to try and de-risk finance. Second part of the question, also, what kind of financial instruments do you think are going to be the most effective to really address this quite challenging area?
Give me another opportunity to reach out to you. Yeah, de-risking is the main trigger point from ADB perspective. To de-risk, we create the catalytic financing window with the trust fund grant window together. Without catalytic financing window, we cannot proceed to the next step. I mean, the implementing project on the ground. By using catalytic financing window, we try to de-risk the project from early stage. Yeah, think about it. There's so many uncertainty and then high and volatile the framework, the regulatory framework. ADB can facilitate in the middle through the policy dialogue with our DMC country, and also technology-rich country like Korea, Japan, and USA can jump into this arena with the policy dialogue. That's the one beauty of this catalytic financing window. To de-risk, we adapted the kinds of blended financing tool. The high concessional loan from Exim Bank, and also the grant also some guarantee component from the trade insurance company from the state-owned enterprise of each advanced country. That will be justifying the ADB's role as a catalyst in this project through the critical mineral to manufacturing value chain.
No, many thanks. And actually, another follow-up question, if that's okay. And going also beyond the finance question a little bit, how does the facility plan to engage with sort of wider MDB coordination platforms, as well as other international partnerships and initiatives on critical minerals?
Yeah, one of the trigger points for ADB's CMM FBF is the World Bank RISE program. As Peter mentioned, the resilient and the inclusive the supply chain enhancement platform ADB is doing. That is just a trust fund. The ADB wants to make that kinds of a partner through the trust fund, but we added the catalytic financing window, and through the MDB working group, ADB is the chairship in this year, MDB working group. The ANICA actively work with the MDB, including World Bank and EBRD, EIB, to materialize our deliverable under the arena of G7 and G20. So one of the delivery must be the regulatory frameworks. We need some standard. Everybody can agree, and also some lighthouse project in terms of regional level and country level. We highlight to do some project like economic corridor development in ASEAN and also the Central West country. We have a platform, the Central Asia Regional Cooperation Partnership, the economic cooperation, CAREC, and South Asia, we have a SASEC. Through those platforms, the regional platform, we want to materialize the economic corridor development on the ground.
Thank you, and also hope relations with UNIDO as well in coordination through our minerals partnership as well would be great. So thanks very much. It's really exciting work, and looking forward to seeing how the facility develops over the coming years. I might move to Muraida and GIZ. It'd be great, Muraida, if you're happy to give an overview of GIZ's work on ensuring sustainable and inclusive supply chains across the value chain.
Yeah, for the topic, GIZ always implements project financed by the BMZ, the German Federal Economic Cooperation the Economic Cooperation Agency. So we do have an extensive extractives program based in Germany, and most of the BMZ funded work has been in Africa. So we are also having a big green economy program here in the Philippines. So it's focused more on the circular economy. So this is funded by the European Union. So we are also hoping that the International Climate Initiative of the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, BMUKN, would also open up a funding facility or a window for us to access critical raw materials, manufacturing, circular economy that can be implemented not only by GIZ, but other development and technical cooperation partners. So basically, we do have an extensive programs from the upstream. Most of it has been in Africa, but we are also going to start a new project in Indonesia in September for the Nichols Initiative. And then hopefully we can connect it with the ASEAN Regional Program on Circular Economy. But I think what is critical that we need is if we are going to implement these projects in countries, there must be a strong national policy, a clear strategy, and a national roadmap on how to utilize these resources. I think there must be a recognition by the government and stakeholders of its value and importance and its critical role in sustainability and the just energy transition. So we also have to recognize that based on our experience in working with stakeholders in Africa, there are marginalized groups, indigenous people, so there must be a recognition of their marginalization, rights, territories, and resources. For the Philippines, we implemented a BMZ project 5 years ago on conflict-sensitive resource assessment. So at that point, though critical raw materials and critical minerals is not yet a priority topic of the BMZ or the BMUKN, we already started engaging with the mining companies in Mindanao, particularly the Caraga region. So hopefully we can build on this initial partnership for ensuring a conflict-sensitive stakeholder dialogue in resource utilization. Because in access to finance, it's critical that we do have due diligence. So it's more than the safeguards, but we should have an overall bigger picture on the long-term strategy and also its contribution to climate action. So I think based on our experience, hopefully the German government can finally provide funding to Asia soon.
And we look forward to the next call from the ICI program in January, I guess. I think it's when they usually launch it, to include critical minerals to manufacturing. So I think if possible, I think we'll move also into the enabling environments. We heard also from the video intervention from the ADB president this morning about that it's not about just global capital and access to that, but it's actually the enabling environment, and also reiterated also by Angela from the World Economic Forum in her presentation and that new report that's been launched, which is very exciting. So if we look at enabling environment for financing, if I may, Undersecretary, in terms of policy readiness, how can financing mechanisms be designed in a way that can really support those countries that we saw in this report, but also our market assessment, have lower policy readiness for critical minerals to manufacturing value chains, and particularly from a financing perspective?
Okay, no, thanks for the question. I think for those that are not yet, still needs a lot of work to do so that policy is all set. Definitely, and I've seen it in the presentation and in the introductions to the respective programs, early policy support would be critical. This will help us, and tapping on the experts and experience of more developed nations will certainly help us craft a policy that's comprehensive as well as inclusive. Okay, So early stage support and of course, um, help towards capacity building. If you're able to benefit from the experience of the experts and the experts essentially, then we will come up with policy again that's tight knit and focused as well on the vision and mission of developing a critical minerals industry, not only in the extraction stage, but hopefully all the way up the value chain of the upstream industries. Okay, of course, in the Philippines, for example, we have limitations of high logistics costs and high power costs. Maybe they can consider regionalization. It may make sense, for example, to work together with the ASEAN, maybe come up with a common refining facility. Maybe that will work, but that's just top of the mind. Of course, the risking is also important, and I think I've heard it in all our development partners. Perhaps instead to do it to offer financing, even if you're not policy ready, to have financing for several set milestones. If you're able to come up with a roadmap, for example, or help us with the roadmap as a first stage. Second, help us with the policies so that we're able to achieve the roadmap. Maybe that's the second stage. Setting milestones and for us to achieve, which will open up greater financing as soon as you achieve those milestones.
Thanks, many thanks, and also highlighting the importance of early policy support that's inclusive as well, the importance of capacity building and the need for expertise as well across the value chain from extraction and downstream, and some important points as well on regionalization and how that could also be part of the solution. We're actually doing very well for time, but I'm also aware that it might be nice to give back some time to the next panel. So although we still have 10 minutes left, I might give some time back to Annika's panel. So I'm going to ask some final questions, and then we're going to hand over to panel 2. So I think first, before I go to Cho, I have a second question for you. I'd quite like to just have a quick snapshot question just to everyone on what do you see as the core gap that we really need to address on financing for critical minerals manufacturing? Very broad question, but is it the enabling environment? Is it specific financing mechanisms? Is it more donor support? Is it capacity building, expertise? And you can't say all of the above. That is not allowed, because that will help us to shape how we think about some of these financing facilities, such as the critical minerals value chain facility, partnership facility, our ATD facility, other donor funds as well. So maybe we can start with Undersecretary and come along the line.
Well, the answer for me, it's all of the above, but considering the stage that we are in, it's policy support that we will need the most. If you're able to offer at different stages as well, of course that will be helpful. Being in the Department of Finance, we have what we call we don't have only funds. We have limited funds, and the help and support of our development partners would of course be very much welcome.
Top thing that is a gap that we can address through these types of facilities?
Yeah, I think UK is doing a lot on each side. So on the demand side, or on supply side, actually, we are still continuing to finance projects like with the A2D facility, the CMM FPF program as well. So we definitely want to ensure that there's a financing support, which is why we're providing grant funding, particularly for lighthouse projects, which we want to find that are scalable and replicable to ensure that they can really have a catalytic impact across the region. So there's always a financing there that we are wanting to provide. But on the same time, on the demand side, we are always looking at how we can create that enabling environment. And obviously underpinning that is a message that we've seen today, yesterday, throughout the week, is partnerships, and something that we really want to support. So, for example, in Brazil, at COP28, we convened the Brazil UK hubs, which is about helping to support the industrial decarbonization for Brazil, essentially making a convening platform for industries, ministries in governments, as well as developers and investors coming together to ensure we can help support their transition. And that's something we want to replicate as well going forward in our partner countries in Asia Pacific as well. And also, we want to really leverage, as you said, leverage UK expertise and partnerships, given that UK is a hub for knowledge in terms of we've got City of London investors, we have our leading universities. We really want to also carry on partnering going forward with our partners here in Philippines and in Asia as well, more broadly, so that we can help create that environment as well.
Working on the ground, working with communities. First, I mean, all countries have their natural endowment of critical minerals. So first, there must be a recognition that there is value, that there is a priority, and this is an opportunity. I think we have encountered certain provinces in certain regions where mining is totally banned. So there are methods for us to have a consolidated multi-stakeholder approach. But first, there must be a recognition that there is value to this for the just energy transition and for sustainable development in general. So I think we have encountered denial on the ground, but of course, a national policy and a strategy and a clear vision of how to use or to make value of this natural endowment is essential for a country.
Thank you. I'm the last man standing. Yeah, in terms of financing gap, I want to highlight that the ADB has engaged 2 years in a country level, especially the demand-driven. The resource-rich country reach out to us quite significantly, and then we have already 11 resource-rich country, and there's many technology-rich country like Japan, Korea, and the UK. We try to connect that resource-rich country and then technology-rich country. But in the middle, there are a significant gap as well. Especially we identify there is a missing middle, especially the smelting, processing, which is very the weakest part of in terms of ESG. So ADB tried to fill the gap, especially that kinds of a big gap through our financing facility. And upstream knowledge work and then scoping study or sometime roadmap facilitation must be necessary to fill that kinds of gap. And at the end of the day, we want to increase and upgrade the value chain in Asia and the Pacific region. Thank you.
Many thanks. And in quick summary, so we've got key points, points of policy support, lighthouse effects, and lighthouse projects. So I know I'm trying to summarize that in 2 words. Working on the ground is important with communities, and how we might match make technology-rich countries with resource-rich countries, and that gap in the middle, such as on smelting. So that's a nice segue actually to the next panel. And I think I've given you 3.5 minutes back for your panel. So can you join me in thanking our distinguished speakers today?
Yeah, good afternoon. I think I just had a déjà vu moment when 3 years ago we had our first deep dive workshop on critical minerals, and Pradeep denied the audience free prior and informed consent to leave the room. So I might have to do this. We had some technical glitch at the beginning and only started 13 minutes late. But I hope that you will be so excited about the next panel that we don't have to close the doors. So anyway, I'm really excited, and I would like to start with giving you 2 numbers. Number one, 6.5 trillion. $6.5 trillion is the estimated economic downturn if the world is experiencing a significant downturn in supply of rare earth and critical minerals. 1.5 is the number two. 1.5 times is the growth of ASEAN's electricity demand by 2035 from today's 1,300 terawatt hours to 2,000 terawatt hours. And to get there, nearly half of all installed capacity will be wind and solar. On top of that, electric cars, which currently represent about 3 to 4% on Southeast Asian roads, are expected to increase to 70% or about 100 million electric vehicles by 2050. So that would require the production of half of the world's rare earth to date. And it represents about 40% of copper production. So where does this leave ASEAN in terms of energy security and clean energy transition? Actually, in fact, I'm really positive about ASEAN. It's right at the center. Malaysia, Vietnam, Laos, PDR, Myanmar, but also the Philippines, Indonesia, are endowed with some of the most significant rare earth and critical mineral reserves on the planet. The geology of this region is extraordinary. The young population, well educated, and is growing. The industrial base is maturing fast. Actually, I'm just coming back from Jakarta, where ministers, policymakers, and industrial leaders were discussing a very exciting new development. They are discussing an ASEAN critical mineral strategy and as part of that development of regional critical mineral corridors. Horizontally integrated cross-border value chains running from mine to processing, from processing to permanent magnet manufacturing and electric vehicle manufacturing, produced and owned in the region. And this is not a fantasy, this is actually a strategic inflection point we are witnessing. The question is not, does Southeast Asia have the resources? It does. The question is not where the global demand for these minerals are. If you believe in institutions like the International Energy Agency, there is, and this demand in the next few decades is insatiable. The question is whether the region will be able to capture the value and will drive inclusive growth, justifying the burden from accelerated mining growth. Malaysia has positioned itself to become a processing hub, the connective tissue between raw extraction and high-value manufacturing. That ambition is real and the conditions are favorable. So I'm really excited that today we have representative on this panel from the entire ecosystem, and we have real industrial leaders who will present to us the rare earth ecosystem and what are the implications for the other critical mineral value chains. So with the first, I will start with Claire. Claire is an industry and investment professional with over 20 years of experience working in the intersection of industry, finance, and government, with deep expertise in strategy, project development across complex jurisdictions and capital mobilization. Before joining ADB 1.5 years ago, she held senior leadership positions at Rio Tinto, including a general manager for strategy and integration at the Oyu Tolgoi mine in Mongolia. Claire, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Some very interesting statistics there. Is there a clicker? Anyway, someone will help me. Okay, so thanks so much. I'm going to attempt something a little ambitious here. And that's to explain rare earth elements, the entire value chain, and why they matter in less than 5 minutes. So it's not a TED talk because I'd have more time. So think of it more like a couple of reels on Insta. Okay. So let me start with the periodic table. So there are 17 rare earth elements, typically grouped into, I wonder if I've got a pointer here. No. Typically grouped into to light and heavy. So we have the light in light blue and the heavy in the darker blue. There is a little bit of nuance to that, but let's keep it simple given the time. They are quite deep in the periodic table from the element number 57 to 71. So if you don't remember them from your high school chemistry, you probably didn't cover them. Okay, but of the 17, there are 4 that are key to permanent magnets. And I've highlighted them here: neodymium, praseodymium, dipsocinium, and terbium. Apologies for my pronunciation. But they drive most of the value. So when you hear about rare earth elements, you can really hone in on these 4. The light rare earths, they provide strength, and the heavies provide strength at high temperatures. So if you have heavy rare earth elements, that's quite important. And I'm sure you all appreciate that these permanent magnets are critical inputs into electric vehicles, wind turbines, and many other clean energy technologies. I think most people know this, but I do like to say that despite their name, they are not rare. Rare earths are actually quite common in the Earth's crust. What is rare is that there is finding them in higher concentration, and what is even more difficult is being able to separate those and process them, which makes it quite difficult to find economically viable deposits and facilities to process them. The separation step is technically complex and requires significant know-how, which is one of the key barriers to this market. Finally, prices are volatile and opaque, which is one of the findings from the World Economic Forum study we heard about earlier. And this has historically deterred investment, but we are seeing much more investment now, given a recognition of the strategic importance of these elements. And we'll touch on this. I think one of the panelists will touch on this later, Mr. Hassan from the Malaysian government. Okay, so moving on to the value chain. So this value chain shows us mining in the Navy, upstream steps in the Navy, the midstream processing step in the orange, and the downstream magnet making and end use in the green. What's important here is while the midstream segment appears relatively small in value, and this is the value of the permanent magnet value chain, just to be clear, it's a $6 to $7 billion value chain. 1 billion of that is tied up in the midstream. So you sort of think, well, why focus on the why focus on that? But that is the critical point in this value chain. And if you have the technology in that midpoint, then you have significant influence over the whole value chain. Separation from a mixed oxide to an individual oxide, which you can see going from the navy to the orange in the box there, is technically complex and capital intensive and involves dozens, sometimes hundreds of steps in the process. And so it really is a competitive advantage. The geology also matters. So we've got the different geology on the left-hand side. Carbonatite deposits are key for light rare earths, while ionic clays are more associated with heavy rare earths. And another panelist, Mr. Lim from MCRE, he will talk about the operation in Malaysia, which has an ionic clay deposit. Okay, this is the third reel and final. So what we have here is a map of the value chain by geography and region. And the striking thing here is the very high level of concentration, particularly in the processing and magnet production. So you see the PRC 91% and 94% respectively. However, global demand is much more diverse. So that diverse global demand, but the concentrated midstream, really creates a supply chain risk globally. So the key takeaway for rare earth elements, it's not a mining issue. I love mining. Everyone knows that. But this is fundamentally a processing and supply chain issue. And for the energy transition, without a diversified processing capacity for rare earth elements, the scale up of EVs and other technologies that Annika mentioned earlier will face material risks, and that inordinate number that you mentioned will materialize. So that's why we're seeing governments step in globally. That's a role that ADB is also playing, because we really know that this value chain will not be built by markets alone. There you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire, and for this very insightful overview. And I think, please join me. I think Instagram, not in its dreams, would think that they have reels like this on their platform. But with this, I would like to invite Mr. Wei Hong Lim. Wei Hong has experience in rare earth and critical minerals industry, particularly in responsible mining, sustainable extraction methods, and supply chain development. Wei Hong is the executive director of Southern Mining Alliance and the founder of MCRE Resources, the only rare earth mining company in Malaysia. Wei Hong, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Anita, and thank you, ADB. So basically, I would like to just go a little bit of the something less spoken about ionic clay. And ionic clay rare earth is basically predominantly mid to heavy rare earth. And as you can see, there is the real mine, and that is the only place that we are talking about. The land clearance requires for the processing part, and the rest of the part actually is our mining area. So you see, they are still pretty much green. Right, so the bit of background here is that our mine actually located in the state of Perak, and recently Southern Alliance actually completed the acquisitions of 40% stake in this MCI, which is the first ionic clay rare earth mine in Malaysia. So why ionic clay rare earth mine? But before we go to that, is that I think there have been a lot talking about the ASEAN country as to could be one of the main contributors to the sustainability of the supply chain. And the unique part about this ASEAN is because of our tropical climate country, and tropical climate is the main contributors to the formations of ionic clay. So it means say that ionic clay is more common in tropical country, and that's why you don't see it in the Europe or the US. So, and why it's so important? Because as it mentions that ionic clay is predominantly mid to heavy rare earth, as you can see is the composition as to the basically praseodymium, neodymium is pretty much higher than the primary ore type that you can see in the bottom part. And I think more importantly is that the compositions of the terbium and dysprosium, that which is also on the higher side as compared to the primary ore. And also another element that many actually has overlooked is the yttrium. Yttrium is one of the main elements that we also need to use for the semiconductors, also for the AI, as well as for the jet engine, right? Without the dysprosium coatings, then there's going to be a bit of issues to all this part. And this speaks a lot as to the importance part of this heavy rare earth, which is more abundant in the ionic clay. So that is the reason why that I do believe that it's about time now for the world to start to explore the ionic clay. And not only that, is basically ionic clay, it could be ones that coexist with the climate change agenda. So perhaps we will touch on that later on. So this is a bit of the primary ore mining methods, right? It involves a typical open pit mining and extractions, and then also there will be a process that we call cracking that leave behind a lot of those harmful or hazardous minerals. That is always an ESG issues, because always is that for this rare earth mining, the upstream share the biggest portions of the ESG responsibility, whereas when it comes to the value attributations, we have the downstream that has the most value to it. So I think this is the part that we believe that horizontal, responsible horizontal value chain is very important, so that the burden is fairly shared. Now, this is the one that we are going to focus a lot more, is ionic clay, because due to the tropical climates, then there is a very active weathering process that can be. But having said so, we are talking about millions of years, right? And that's where the rare earth is actually released to the weathering layer, which is a lot more, I would say, easiest to extract, because they are not chemically bonded to the host, unlike the mineral base, right? So in this aspect is that this is the processes that involve as compared to mineral base. This is more complicated, as well as heavy K-pads, and whereas this is the one that we are talking about, the ionic clay, that we have a minimal K-pad, and also we have a lot easier, simpler process. And for these methods that we are talking about, why this ionic clay rare earth mining or through the in-situ leaching methods could coexist together with the climate change agenda, because of late the Malaysia government actually has appointed Forest Research Institute of Malaysia to carry out the study as to the impact of these mining methods toward the forest ecosystem. So should that actually, the results positive, then that it will contribute significantly to the sustainability agenda, also to the climate change agenda, which we believe that meaning mining can coexist with the climate change agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wei Hong. And in a very short period of time, you have convinced us of the potential of ionic clay with a 33% content of heavy rare earth compared to 3% in monazite. So from the potential to development of the regional value chain, I have the pleasure to invite now Mr. Hasif Hassan from Malaysian Industry Government Group for High Technology, MITE. Hasif is a principal analyst at the MITE with the extensive experience of developing road mapping for high technologies. And now he's going to put his experience to work on the rare earth value chain in Malaysia. And with this, I give the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Anika, and thank you to ADB for allowing me to share this presentation to the audience here today. So again, my name is Hasif. I'm from the Malaysian Industry Government Group for High Technology, basically an agency that serves the government and providing some consultancy, especially on high technology areas. So, So again, we are in the topic of rare earth elements, so I guess I could not be speaking about other industries in this case. So yeah, this is just a bit of context of where we are at in Malaysia. So again, this is just a baseline study. So I think the most important fact is that, again, as alluded by our previous presenters, the reserves of these minerals are there. So, and it's basically been verified by several studies done by our minerals office in Malaysia as well. So those are the potentials, but those are some of the numbers, but whether we can make it a reality or not. So that is something up for context and up for our discussions here today. So again, from Malaysia's perspective, there are a lot of things that has been undertaken, several policies that have been worked on by, again, Malaysia have a lot of ministries as well. Like myself, I'm from the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. When we talk about manufacturing, there will be involved Ministry of Trade, Investment, and then there are also Ministry of Economy, and then there are also Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. So there's a lot of factors will need to be working in concerted efforts in order for us to move these REE efforts. So again, these are some of the policy papers that we have published in Malaysia with regards that touches a bit and bit and there about the REE. So again, I'll just jump very quickly because I don't have much time to dwell on it, but of course I'll be happy to entertain much of the question afterwards. So, but again, based on our study, this is some of this, because our role is to basically spur and initiate this industry to move forward with, of course, with regards to all the reserves. Without the industry, some of this will not be able to materialize. So this is, again, just a bit of context where Malaysia is at the moment. Again, as you draw the value chain of REE, we have the upstream, we have the midstream, and then we have the downstream economy that we are looking at. So again, from Malaysia's perspective, some of it, we have a portion or capability or capacity within that area, as mentioned by Mr. Wei Heng earlier. So MCRE is well right in at the fore of the upstream industries, whereby they are able to produce certain capability, able to demonstrate certain abilities as well as far as production is concerned. But again, the key areas whereby in this case, from Malaysia's perspective, we are a bit unique because we have some form of cooperation that we have established back in 2012, 2013 with an Australian company called Lynas. So again, over this time of period, so several capabilities, several capacity have been developed locally within Malaysia together with Lynas. And in fact, that have positioned Malaysia as perhaps maybe less than 10%, right? Whereby we have contributed towards some of the midstream capability of REE in the world. So, that's put Malaysia in quite a unique position in this particular case. But made a little caveat to that, that processing capability and ability does not really necessarily mean we are able to separate the resources that we have in Malaysia, because those are based on the experience of monazite, which is, again, those are the one that was mined back in Calgary in Australia, so, and was brought to Malaysia and was processed in Malaysia. So if I ask Lynas to process whatever that Mr. Wei Heng is producing, so I don't think we will be able to do that just yet. So again, that's just a bit of context here. And of course, when we look at the downstream, some of this, this is some of this industries that already there in Malaysia. So again, it's just a matter of whether at the moment they are asking what will be the Malaysia's focus and whatsoever. But this is whereby we come in, we step in to provide certain set of direction, certain set of guideline, whereby these industries can mobilize and make certain investment whenever they're needed and to move forward with the REE. So yes, that's basically, and again, from, if I can extract all the documents that I've shown to you earlier, so this is some of the targets that already been put forth within that document. So Malaysia have quite an ambitious target. So again, this is some of the studies that was produced circa 2020 up until 2023. So we have an ambition to become a super magnet manufacturing, and then at the same time, of course, to support the production of our own EV in Malaysia. So again, this is some sort of the alignment whereby why we are putting up so much focus on REE, because this also represents how Malaysia positions itself to have some sort of sovereign control within the REE sector itself. So again, with all the jobs creation, those are the aspirations we Malaysia as a country we have, and we expecting to project that. So, and of course, that comes without saying some challenges as well. So, and I think most importantly that I wish to highlight in here is that certain stringent ESG that we need to be able to comply with the expectations that we have in the future, and then at the same time, the high investment costs. And I think that's one of the more reasons why I am here. So basically to look at how can we facilitate such discussion whereby those investments and risk can be further eluded. And then perhaps just a way forward, this is just basically some of this. Of course, we're looking at integration of cross-value chain technology and intellectual properties, and then some sustainability and ESG leadership across the members' countries, whereby how we can learn and emulate certain of the best cases that is perhaps already available in other parts of the world. So I think I'll end that, and I'll pass back to Anika.
Thank you very much, Hasif. I recognize that it's 5:30 now, but I hope you can allow us another 5 minutes of discussion and then a few minutes for Pradeep to deliver his closing remark. And I would like to invite Dr. Rohel to join us from the Philippine MGB. Dr. Rohel is a geologist in the Philippines and an accredited competent person under the Philippine Mineral Reporting Code. And I would like to discuss with this distinguished panel and maybe one round from all of you, what do you perceive as critical steps for this, for the development of a regional value chain, or if you want maybe develop even a value chain in country, if you feel more comfortable talking about that. But what would it take for Malaysia to move up the value chain and create this processing hub and even downstream develop manufacture these permanent magnet? Claire, can I ask you
Sure.
to start?
Yeah, I think if I look at it from a ASEAN perspective, because I'll allow you guys to talk from a country perspective, the complex problem I see is how all the ASEAN countries going to really agree what each other's comparative advantages are and let each country play to its comparative advantages and not all solve every problem itself. So I'll keep the answer short, but I think that's a really complicated problem that ASEAN has at its table. It's a good problem to have, but a complicated one.
Thank you very much. Wei Hong, you have a lot of thoughts on this. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think basically is that the main challenge is for these upstream, midstream, we are not talking about the volume base, right? We are talking about just a few 100,000 tons of the rare earth oxides that's being traded worldwide and produced. So I think the challenge here is that it's going to be very difficult when it comes to the negotiation tables, like what Claire has mentioned, that who should do what, right? But I think in this case is that in a way we have seen some uncoordinated kind of efforts whereby Malaysia, we do have the mine and also we have liners. And at the same time, we also have Vietnam, for example, that they have very strong metallizing as well as separation as well. And Thailand, they also have a good combinations of the this metallizing as well as magnet manufacturing. So, and also lately of Malaysia as well. So I think is that to a certain extent is that while each countries try to develop their own industry, but in a way is that it's very much based on the strength of an individual country. So it's more towards like the next step is perhaps is more towards like a coordinated effort as to how do we actually maximize instead of competing or something like a zero-sum game kind of a scenario, because I think ultimately is we have to bear in mind that this is not a volume-driven game, right? And it is the downstreams that actually has command the largest value. And for ASEAN, I believe that it's more towards the block efforts that as how do we actually optimize the value chain, as particularly from the upstream to midstream, based on the strengths that we currently have, as well as we also have to factor in the constraints that if we would like to move further.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I think from the perspective of again how do we expand it towards the downstream. So I echo that. I think it's always been the chicken and egg. So it's about whether you supply first or you have the demand first. So I think from my side, from my own experience, I've seen this kind of discussion whereby this side are blaming this side. You don't create the demand, you don't create the supply. So whereas I'm stuck in that middle, so not knowing which side should I choose. So but I guess there's always been a question. But I think from Malaysia's perspective, I think at least what I can share is that in the end of the day, it's not for everyone to champion each of this. So, but I think what we would I would strive for is that maybe look for more integration across how much cooperation that we can do across this value chain, and in fact laterally towards every other part of the world. Because even when I do a deep dive within each of the respective value chains, there are certainly areas whereby even in Malaysia, for example, there are several components, there are several chemicals, there are several things that perhaps in order for that value chain to be to expand, that perhaps is not available not just within Malaysia but within the region. So we will create a lot of uncertainty. So and a lot of things that perhaps if you want to scale up, perhaps that would be another risk that we'll have to take into consideration. So this is whereby when we discuss among, so that rather than we looking at we becomes the so-called only one be able to do this, maybe we should work concertedly with other parts of, again, across the other regions or other countries as well, that perhaps we can look into this. And then again, that's allow us a lot more of de-risking facilities to happen, rather than if whatever happens in the future, if it fails or whatsoever, we have to take that all alone on our own. So cry alone in the edge of the bed. So rather than we can cry together. So I think that's the risking part, whereby that's where such things can be. Again, we always talk about project the excellence, but sometimes we also have to take into account if it fails. So how much of a consideration that we have to also take.
Thank you very much, Hasif. So not more competition, but more collaboration and potentially some joint venture. Dr. Rogel, now we've talked a lot about rare earth, and we are already short in time, but I wanted to ask you, how does it resonate with you from the perspective of the Philippines, who has the similar ambitions on developing copper or nickel value chain, and where do you see the differences?
Yeah, first, we go first for the rare earth, just to be aligned. And then the thing about rare earth, of course, it's an endowment issue. The Philippines compared to Malaysia, it's an outlier somehow, because we have very, very low contents of rare earth in most of our deposits. And the good thing, if we are to look at the critical mineral side, one of the abundant mineral that we have is the nickel, which is in the form of a laterite. It's a type of soil, and the rare earth rests on that material. So we're producing rare earth, though it's very small, it's very low in terms of grade. But we're producing rare earth in terms of in the form of a scandium. We call it the scandium oxalate. And with the midstream production from 2 of our nickel laterite processing plant, we're producing that. In fact, it's not that significant, but considering that the cost of mining is within the income from the nickel and related products, the income from scandium or the rare earth will now become a sort of a windfall when it comes to any operations. And it's quite significant in terms of income. For a 1.4 kilogram, for example, of production, you're producing about $500,000 of income just only for the rare earth. So that's the significant part of it. For the rest of the critical minerals in the Philippines, like the copper and the gold, the thing about that, as like that of most of the ASEAN countries, is that we have this weak spot when it comes to midstream and downstream processing. So I think that's the thing that we need to move forward on. And one of the first steps that we're working on as part of the government is on the policy making. So we have this framework on critical minerals becoming an executive order, which is to be signed by the president. And it has already been submitted to the office of the president, maybe on his desk now. And hopefully it could be signed anytime soon. And part of that policy is on the downstream development of critical minerals processing. And of course, on the side that is like the scandium, on the value adding. So those are the things that I think will benefit us most when it comes to utilization of critical minerals. That includes rare earth.
Thank you very much. So policy making Well, unfortunately, I think we could continue for some more time, but unfortunately, our time is up, and Menti is also not working. So with this, I think I would like to thank my distinguished panel, and I invite you to give them a big hand of applause for really insightful presentations. And with this, I hand over to Pradeep for his closing remark. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good evening, all of you. I realize I'm a marked man standing between you and the reception. Peter, I heard you said something about drinks. Yeah? Well, if you haven't prepared for that, you better accelerate to demonstrate. You've got 3 minutes, right? So look, sitting in the back of the room and listening to this really interesting discussion on a really complex subject, I've got 3 takeaways. Why 3 takeaways? Because McKinsey says you can only have 3 bullets in a slide, right? So we'll go with 3. The first one was really about that, look, critical minerals to manufacturing supply chains is not just about mines. It's industrial ecology. It's an entire ecosystem. Just a few disparate or discrete projects is not going to get us to our outcome, right? We need deliberate industrial strategy, we need coordinated policy, and we need sustained capital deployment. The second thing I heard was we need partnerships. That came through a lot, right? You know the saying, right? War is too important to be left to the generals. So here in ADB, we have a lot of economists. And so we've adapted that to say the economy is too important to be left to the economists. So today, I think we can take that even further and say critical minerals to value chain is too important to be left to any single stakeholder. I often hear, you know, even within our own circles, oh, these are all going to be private sector projects. And I say, no, without the government, these projects are not going to happen. You can see that even the most developed countries in the world, in the West, where huge amounts of public support is going to get these projects off the ground. So we need everybody to work in tandem. Host governments or governments that support these projects need to create stable, transparent, investable policy environments. Consumer governments or governments that are going to import these products and minerals have an important role in providing clear demand signals, supporting offtake arrangements, and providing long-term policy certainty. MDBs, bilateral development agencies, export credit agencies, ECAs, private equity, pension funds, infrastructure, investors, and OEMs all have a role in crowding in capital and reducing risk across the entire value chain. Now, amongst these actors, and perhaps this is self-serving, I would say that the MDBs have a particularly key enabling role because we are uniquely positioned to help structure bankable projects, de-risk investment, mobilize private capital at scale, and connect upstream resource development with downstream mineral and industrial opportunities. So then in summary, if our objective is truly diversified, resilient, and sustainable supply chains, then we do need not just building a few mines, but building an ecosystem of partnerships capable of mobilizing capital, sharing risk. I hope it's not just sharing the pain, as our gentleman from MITE said, and creating value across entire supply chains. Thank you all for being here. I want to thank UNIDO, the UK government, and GIZ for joining hands with ADB to set up this panel discussion. And this is just, you know, the beginning. As Annika referred to earlier, we started this dialogue within ADB about 3 years ago. Now we're at the point of actually financing projects, engaging with client governments to take things to the next level. We look forward to meeting with you periodically and updating you on our progress and sort of taking this journey together. And I do want to thank our ADB's CMM Dream Team. You heard from Annika and Claire, KJ as well. Thanks to them for bringing the speakers and the agenda together. Thanks to Shrishti, Bona in the back. There's Rani, who's based in Kazakhstan. Am I missing anybody else? Eileen, of course. Yes, yes. Yeah. I mean, look, there are people in this room who've helped in many different ways and will continue to strive to make sure that we can do our best as ADB to supporting CMM value chains across the region. Thank you very much.